Hello, thanks for joining me. We've got some interesting trees to work on today. They're all coniferous, so we've got a spruce, a fir and a pine. I'm going to be chopping for taper, and I'm also going to be kind of refining some of the branch structures, so I love this kind of work. Let's get stuck in. First up, we've got a spruce. I collected this in the spring. I did a trunk chop on it up here. If I pull this branch down, you can see where the chop was made. I also applied some wire to create this new leader. I don't think the work I did was terrible, but looking at this structure now, which I see as the front, I've got a couple of issues that I think need dealing with. From this angle we can see a couple of the issues, and it's really these two bar branches. So we've got the lower pair and the higher ones. And I think I need to make some decisions and do some chopping to improve this in the future. Before I deal with this bar branch, I mean there's another bar branch down here, but this one doesn't seem so troublesome, is what do we do with this? I think this will definitely lead to inverse taper here if I don't do something. So I need to make a decision on which of these to become the leader. Obviously I initially chose this one, but I'm beginning to think now that this will be the better leader, and I can remove these two. To give me a clearer idea of what's going to happen, the first thing I'm going to do is remove the main trunk up here, because this is definitely going. Now with that gone, I can make a more informed decision on what I want to do. And I've got, actually, I do have 3 branches, because I've got one at the back there. Looking from a little further back now, I do like the way that the trunk sort of comes across this way and then back there. So this is the natural leader. This one's too thick to be a branch at the top, and yet this thinner one at the back is going to add some nice depth. So the decision's basically made in that this one has to be removed. With a nice sharp pair of cutters, I'll just come in here and take that out. There's a small bud in the centre here which I will remove, because I don't want any more growth around this area. As I say, this will now become a side branch, and that's the new leader. Now I've got a decision to make on these lower branches. I kind of naturally think, because this goes off to the right, that this one here would be the better branch. However, it's kind of from the inside of the bend, and it's opposite this one, which is on the outside of the bend. So my natural thoughts are to keep this, but then I have 2 branches on the same side. So I'm in a bit of a quandary as to what to do, if I'm honest. I can either remove that and possibly that, or I could move that and that. And this is it's a tricky decision, that, as to what to do. Or I could leave them. You are allowed to have bar branches. I think this will cause inverse taper if I leave both of these. Very tricky one, that, as to know what to do. But I'm going to go with my instinct, which is to leave the branch on the outside and remove this in the centre. It's gone now. Having made that previous decision to remove the branch up here, the next decision, it's made for me, and it's to remove this branch here. Or is it? Could I have these branches like this? No, I want rid. I've just sealed up the wounds with cut paste and rotated the tree round, and I quite like it on this angle now, with these branches in that sort of formation. I think this has got a bit of potential. Yeah, happy with that. I've got a fir tree here. I bought this from a local garden centre last year, wired it up a couple of times, grew it, it fell off a wall and some branches snapped off, so it's had a bit of a life already. And one of the things, I mentioned it in the video about improving taper is I really can't accept thick branches from the top of a tree. I just don't like the aesthetic, and that's what we've got here. It seems to backbud quite well, this particular tree, and this is the offending branch. I mean, it's very, very chunky. These are lovely and in proportion, and then this real thick one, it just stands out like a sore thumb. So I don't think I've got any option other than to either remove this branch, or my preferred option is to turn this into the new leader. So in I go, and I'll just take this top piece off. I do like this severe bend here. This branch at the back works quite well. I think this will heal up nicely on the top. Excellent. There's a nice bud under here if I wanted to use that instead of this branch, but for the time being, everything can just stay. I'll apply some cut paste, and I'm happy with that. I really like interesting shaped trees like this, and so I'm looking forward to seeing how this develops now. Next up, we've got this Scotch Pine. I think it's a really interesting tree. I'm growing this branch here as a sacrificial branch, and next year I'm going to be cutting that off because it was only collected 6 months ago. This, you know, I don't want to remove all this health at the moment, but it will definitely be going. I'm happy with this branch, but there's a branch at the back that needs some pruning doing on it. Bearing in mind that this sacrificial branch is going to be removed, this branch here is developing a bit of inverse taper, and it's okay at the moment, but I don't want this swelling here to develop, so I need to choose which of these branches to remove. These are on top of each other, which is not ideal, so I think what I'll do is remove the bottom of the two, like that. I think this is a really interesting piece of material, you know, that kind of character that you only really get from collected trees. As I said, my plan is always to grow this as a sacrificial branch. However, now I'm looking at it, I'm thinking there is an option to turn one of these branches here into the new leader, to add some thick wire to this branch and to really contort and twist this and combine that as part of the design. So what I'm going to do with this tree is I'm going to let my subscribers decide. So if you think I should remove this completely next year, call it option 1. If you think I should add wire, twist this and turn this into the design, comment with option 2, and whichever gets the most is what I'm going to do. And remember, if you hit that subscribe to keep up to date with what's going on, then you'll be able to follow what happens with this tree in the future. I've got a small tree here that I bought from a garden centre. I bought 4 tiny little shoots last year, and they've grown, well, I say they've grown really well. 3 of them died, 1 of them survived. And this one, I don't know if it's a yew or a hemlock, but it's got some wire on it. I'm going to remove that first. I've wired some nice shape into this tree, and this is growing up quite long and vigorous. So I do think now is the time to remove this leader and turn this into the apex. So I'm just going to chop this like that, just clean that cut up. And that will just grow up now like that. I've got kind of a, it is almost a twin trunk, this one, and there is the option down the line of actually removing this branch completely, and I'm definitely toying with that idea. and letting this one become the leader. I think this might be a bit too contorted down here, thinking about it. So I'm going to go for it, and having said I'll remove it here, just having a rethink, let's take it off there. Yeah, I'm happy with that now. What I don't want to have to do is the same thing up here when these two thicken. So I need to decide now really which one's going to become the main leader of the tree. And I think it'll be this. Therefore, in order that this branch doesn't thicken up too much, I'm going to just nip that one back, and that'll allow all the growth to go into here, and that'll just become a side branch. Last but by no means least, we've got this ornamental spruce, and picked it up from a garden centre last year. It's a bit of an ugly one. I've done a chop down here, and I think I need to remove some of this top just to build in a bit of taper. So it's just a question of discovering whereabouts I can make this cut. If I turn the tree around, I just need to pick one of these branches, and I think there's one here that's a natural, kind of in a natural position. When faced with several options of which branch to use, I think it's one of these four. I think these are a touch low. Probably this one in the centre is about right. And it's just a question of chopping it off and having a look at it once all this top's gone. There we go. Oh yeah, that's much better, I think. Let's turn it around and show you from the other side. Well, that works nicely. This is coming up vertically up as a really good new leader. We've got some nice branches further down that are kind of really evenly spaced. I think that works really well. Before I put some cut paste on that wound, now that I've reduced this, I don't want this branch to go too thick. And it's almost a kind of twin trunk, it's so thick, this one, but that's okay. But by reducing the length of this, that'll just keep this branch in check, which I prefer. And what I will also do, I think, is add some wire to this to get some movement into it. So I'll pop some wire on this now. I want to get some quite serious movement into this branch because it's a bit boring. So I'm going to wrap a double coil of aluminium wire around it. So just working my way up the trunk like this. And what this double coil allows me is, it allows me to get plenty of hold onto that branch, but it also supports the bark of the branch as I'm manipulating it, because I know I'm going to be doing quite a lot of manipulation to this. It'll just be a sort of extra support, which is always really handy. Oh, I've trapped a branch there, so just taking a little bit of care just to make sure that I weave in between all of these branches and don't trap any, because I want this to grow on healthily in order that it sort of accepts this new shape that I'm going to put onto it. I'm not particularly bothered that the end of this wire is just loose and hanging like that, that's fine. And now it's my decision of what to do with it. This is quite straight and up, so I think this wants to have some lateral movement. I'll start off by bringing it down like that towards me and away from the camera, and then really back round. So I'll just change the camera and show you the angle that I put into that branch. Bonsai's no place for half measures, so I really put a good bit of movement into that, and I think that adds a lot of interest to this tree, and with the work I've done over this last few minutes, it's kind of improved it, I think. After taking a quick step back, I like the lateral movement, but it's kind of a bit horizontal, so what I am going to do also is just bring it up as well, just to add a bit of vertical movement to the end of the branch, and that will help with the health of the tree as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is my kind of bonsai. I just love it. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon.